Great, thank you very much. We haven't left that yet though, because our next one is about the Storm Recovery and Resilience consultation feedback. And that's Craig, are you coming forward for this one? We also had some of that from this morning, which is also very helpful in terms of how they saw that their own consultation feedback.
Kia ora koutou katoa, ko Linda Greenos toko ingoa again. Yeah, delighted to be here talking about the consultation on the Storm Recovery and Resilience program, and are joined also, just acknowledging, by two of our whānau from the advisory panels, the demographic advisory panels, Dylan and Tira, who will also be addressing you through this presentation. So I think we'll try and whip through as much as possible. So look, the focus of the consultation was understanding the impacts of the storm, so what happened for people, what helped and what do they need next, as well as receiving feedback on flood management initiatives, and particularly the Making Space for Water program. Oh, thank you. So throughout August, we sought feedback from Aucklanders and from local boards on the Tāmaki Makaurau Recovery Plan and the Making Space for Water program. Today we're reporting back a summary of that feedback and providing local board resolutions as part of your report, prior to coming back to you in October with a full Making Space for Water program for your approval and an update on the recovery plan. I think we'll just skip through this one. Suffice to say, we had some objectives and principles that guided the way that we undertook this engagement. We held 19 council-led events over that time period, as well as 2 webinars, and we supported 7 community-led events. There was a total of 203 people who attended those council-led events, and we received a total of 2,051 submissions, either online, in person or handwritten. So feedback on impact. So we asked people, how were you and your local community affected by the weather events? From those responses, 49% of respondents talked about impacts to their community, while 25% talked about damage to their home and or contents. We also asked, in the months following the storms, what helped you and your community to get through? So we got some really fantastic stories of community spirit and resilience coming through this. So 34% of respondents talked about that important community spirit and support as a really massive thing that supported them through, while 26% talked about being self-reliant and just getting on with things either by choice or because they weren't sure where to get support. If we just click on, we asked what would help you and your community to feel as though you had recovered, and how can we be more prepared for events like this in the future. So 34% talked about better stormwater maintenance as a thing that would make them feel more prepared for the future. 18% talked about improvements or better civil defence and emergency management response. And in terms of preparation, again, stormwater came up as a key piece of feedback with 21%. And 32% talked about changes to or improvements to planning and development. Now, there isn't a slide for this, but I think it's important and hot off the press. I think it's worth just sharing with you the feedback that we've received from mana whenua on the Tāmaki Makaurau Recovery Plan, and then Craig will talk to feedback specifically on the Making Space for Water program. So we've received feedback. We invited all mana whenua, obviously, to provide feedback on the plan, and we received feedback from 7 mana whenua groups. Key themes that came through in that feedback were around partnership and that the Tamaki Makaurau Recovery Plan should identify and support genuine partnership opportunities for mana whenua. Second theme was kaitiakitanga me hi taiao, so that the plan should place more emphasis on environmental wellbeing and supporting kaitiakitanga activities to achieve this. Talked about monitoring and measurement and the need to have this identified to assist with determining the success of implementation of the plan. Fourth was around hauora, so having a more holistic and aspirational focus to the plan to improve health outcomes. Whairawa, identifying clear economic and procurement opportunities, particularly for Māori, but more broadly, which can be leveraged to positively impact mana whenua and Māori communities. And lastly, was around streamlining efforts. So there are existing initiatives which mana whenua have supported, which can and should be leveraged. So I'm going to end my bit now and hand over to you, Dylan and Teresa. Thank you.
Kia ora, Linda. Thank you very much. Kia ora koutou, ko Teresa Platt tēnei, and I am the co-chair of the Rainbow Communities Advisory Panel. Dylan?
Kia ora koutou katoa, my name is Dylan and I'm on the Youth Advisory Panel.
And we just thought we'd really like to we're only here for a couple of minutes to talk to you today about the feedback report that we wrote and the actual presentations that we gave feedback on. And just to let you know that we did have 27 panel members come, and we covered all the spectrum: youth, seniors, rainbow, ethnic, disability and Pacific peoples. And I can say that the room was just really, really teeming with enthusiastic people who really wanted to come together and provide help and provide advice, which is, as Councillor Alf was saying, what happened when the actual emergency happened. Now, Dylan and I are going to take you through this one PowerPoint, one slide. I'm sorry, we've broken all the rules because we only have a couple of minutes, so we've shoved as much information in there as we possibly can. But Dylan, would you like to?
Yeah, absolutely. So this cross-panel session was a great opportunity to have a kōrero with a range of different voices that were had on the ground, lived experience of those Auckland floods and Cyclone Gabrielle. And so these were some of the key themes that came out of those discussions. So firstly, beginning with partnering and community engagement is going to be a pivotal point going forward for us and Auckland Council. And so what this looks like is engaging, partnering and sharing with local communities, mana whenua, and those impacted by the recent disasters to support future emergency responses and the ongoing recovery. And so we had a range of Auckland Council staff as well as Auckland Emergency Management come and present to us. And we have a lot of faith and trust that you have the experts who know what they're doing, which is very reassuring to us. And so what we really want to see the next steps be is those council experts working with community leaders, as community leaders often have first access to their people in communities, and also a wider base to contact as well. And so that's going to be super helpful for the next time there's going to be a future emergency or for the ongoing recovery.
Another key theme was to have a coordinated and inclusive approach, and that was around agencies collaborating to reduce stress for impacted communities, and by having communications which are easily accessible and available on a range of platforms in different languages and formats. Having been impacted myself, it would have been really good just to have one number to call. And I think that would be, there's multiple agencies, but maybe people just, potentially just have the one number. And then surprised to me, different generations use different sources of information. I thought everybody just tuned into the TV, but no, youngsters use the TikTok or the Instagram. So those are really important components of what our communities felt was going forward, to make sure that we incorporated those.
So the next theme that arose as well was building capability. And so this is all about building local communities to prepare and respond to any future extreme events by providing emergency response training, ensuring understanding of civil defense procedures, and also how to respond in emergencies and disasters. And so often we all know what to do when there is an emergency, such as the fires, earthquakes, lockdowns, and a lot of these are taught in schools and workplaces already. And so now it's about providing resources to our communities and upskilling our people to be ready for these severe weather-related events. And so what to do in the case of another flood or another emergency event.
And the last theme was around equitable recovery, and that was recognising the need for greater support for vulnerable communities and groups who suffered property loss and damage, and sharing the costs between all residents. And obviously this was a great talking point at our workshop. But there was a real emphasis on looking after each other and focusing especially on vulnerable groups, and obviously having a social benefit to making sure that the costs were spread equitably. And then obviously with learning from previous events and funding processes to have them ready as well. So yeah, so those are the key themes. That obviously the report is in your hands. So and as I said before, the community was really keen, really enthusiastic about coming and helping, and they were there. We were there on the spot when it happened, and you could just see the community coming together, and we need to use that expertise now.
Thank you for that. I've got some questions. But I'll just... Oh, have you finished? No, you haven't finished, sorry. I haven't heard from you yet.
Yeah, sorry, Your Worship. Look, I'll just quickly whiz through making space for water. So we had 1580 submissions in total, of which 697 supported, 291 were neutral or mixed, and 104 don't support. So when you do the maths, you can see there's a substantial support for the program. We also had a very successful hui with 29 reps from 15 iwi and the Chief Planning Office in Healthy Waters, and I'd like to acknowledge Nicola McDonald's leadership in this space and pulling that hui together, because it was a very, very well attended hui, and we did all of the water stuff together, so it was very efficient. Not only we talked about making space for water, we talked about water strategies and national policy statements of freshwater management and everything else that's happening in the water space, so it was a great opportunity to do it in an efficient manner. So some of the key themes, including Te Ao Māori in design, recognising specific impact on whānau Māori, identifying opportunities for iwi to partner in projects. And I think obviously the Making Space for Water is a fantastic program of the size and scale where I think we can do something very special with iwi Māori moving forward. The resource of iwi to inform and support delivery, and obviously the mana whenua having their kaitiaki kitanga obligations to support the environment and the community. We also presented to all of the local boards and had a great reception from the local boards, and the key themes there are seeking diverse funding streams, balancing community and infrastructure solutions, local knowledge and networks to identify solutions, better managed development that impacts stormwater in the flood risk areas, and that local boards can support consistent, accessible and timely comms during and after event. Because there's no doubt about it in my mind, for this program to be successful, we want it to be locally led, not led from the centre, led from the local communities who know their communities best. So I think, as Linda already pointed out, we've got a couple of big things coming up. The funding decision on the 6th of October, and then the big one for us, which is the reporting back on the whole program on the 26th of October. And I think on that date there's going to be an update on the Tamaki Makaurau recovery plan as well. Kia ora from me, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Right, you ready for questions now? Okay, I've got Councillor Turner and then three more. Four.
Sorry, yep. I just wanted to make sure I take every opportunity that we have seen that those on that slide, the first one with the people supporting stormwater, that was divided into two. If you go back a bit more, next, keep going. I just wanted to make sure that it was noticed, one more, that it was noticed that 55% of the people are there. 34 and 21, 55% of the people are talking about the stormwater problems I keep hammering on about. Just make sure you've acknowledged that. Thank you.
Is that plus? I mean, a lot of the ones improve the stormwater would want better stormwater maintenance, so that you can't, I'm not sure if you can add that, but I get your point. Councillor Dalton.
Thank you. Tēnā kouroa, thank you for your presentation. Just a question on, and thank you for the key themes. I looked at the statistics from the survey and there was 60% of people weren't affected by the flooding. And I wondered if there was commentary in there around them being concerned about what happens when it rains in their area, because it didn't rain in their area in the beginning of the year. And when I look at the statistics again, we have 73% European responses. We have 1% Māori and less than 1% Cook Island and Tongan. And we also have, on the next page, 1% for the South Auckland board areas returning. So there's still a big voice that we're not hearing from, and that will absolutely need to be protected when it rains in the south. Was there commentary, even though there wasn't a lot of commentary coming through from the south, around the theme of what happens when it rains in our place? Because there might be a perception there's a lot of attention going into recovery, as there should be, but what happens when the rain comes?
Kia ora, thank you, Councillor. Yeah, look, I think it was really clear, particularly in in-person engagement events, that was something that there was high levels of anxiety about, and we're seeing that both in our day-to-day interactions with people as well as through this consultation. I guess when we're considering this feedback, and I guess we will be asking you to do the same when we come to you with the Tamaki Makaurau Recovery Plan and the Making Space for Water program, is that those people who really have been directly impacted, it's not reasonable to expect necessarily that they're going to engage in these types of consultation engagements. They've got enough on their plates just trying to manage their day-to-day lives and figure out what they're doing with their livelihoods and families and homes. So that, I guess that's where we really need to be thinking about how we get more stories from them, but also just use existing evidence and research from previous events, which helps us understand what the impacts are on those communities.
So perhaps if I could just follow up with Craig, the work to be undertaken, if it hasn't already, around making space for water in those areas in the south that are affected and will be affected, and also the stormwater maintenance.
Yeah, I can give you a categorical assurance that we're actually really focusing on those areas as one of our first priorities. We obviously have the opportunity by working closely with Kaingaora as well, who in many cases are involved in a lot of the ownership of the land. It makes it, because one of the challenges we've got in some of the other areas is we're still working through the whole risk assessment for the properties. But particularly in Mangere, for example, we were dealing predominantly with Kaingaora-owned properties. And so that's happening right now, right here. We're into quite detailed planning with them around those areas. Which is, at least it's a good start. We've got an awful lot more to do, but that's most definitely one of our key focus areas, Kia ora.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. We've got an awful lot more to do today too, so can we keep them fairly brief rather than patting each other on the back? Questions, please. Councillor Bartley.
I was going to pat them on the back. I really appreciate Craig and the team there, because whenever there's a major rainfall, the communities get so anxious about drains and that the drains are blocked. So I really appreciate your quick responses to clear the drains, especially in the areas where we end up having cars flooding on the road. My experience was what people needed. People needed information to know when to leave the house when the water is rising in your place, that nobody is going to come and rescue them, and that food was a major issue that people needed, and clothing, because they would turn up with the wet clothes that they had when they escaped their homes, and shelter. So is that picked up anywhere in here, noting the demographics of who fed back into the survey?
Kia ora, Councillor. Yeah, it is in the report, and I'm quickly trying to find it. So, excuse me, I won't give you the exact percentage because I haven't. But we certainly did see in the analysis of the consultation feedback that for Pacifica specifically, information about what to do and how to access support during and after an event was the key issue, and significantly more than other population groups. So that we went out, and apologies, I didn't explain this in the initial presentation. We intentionally aligned this consultation with the Civil Defence and an Emergency and Management Group plan, because we knew that people wanted to talk about both what happened at the time and the improvements for future responses, as well as what the recovery looked like. So any feedback that relates to what happened during the event, improvements to that, is being picked up as part of the Civil Defence and Emergency Management Group plan, and we're working really closely with them.
Councillor Walker, please.
Sure. I've read the feedback and the local board feedback, and the question I've got is your response to very practical, basic things that people are suggesting in communities. And I'm interacting with people in Browns Bay and Manly and Stanmore Bay and Mairangi Bay, places that got flooded. And they're suggesting stuff, and the response that they're getting is a big storm event, it doesn't matter, we're not planning to do anything. And the particular concern that I've got, it goes to my question, is yes, there are the big storm events, but in between them, you've got the other storm events that can still wreak havoc to businesses and properties and the like, and there are lower level, sometimes economical solutions to them. Are we going to see those worked up and addressed? And that also goes with maintenance and the catch pits and the overland flow paths and all the other stuff.
Most definitely, Councillor Walker. I think I've mentioned this before, but Making Space for Water is a regional program, and we want to work with all impacted communities, and we encourage communities to provide us with ideas. We do not ignore stuff that comes in from the community. We are obviously having to triage what's happening at the moment, because our staff are absolutely running pretty ragged in terms of their workload. So the community might feel that they're not being listened to, but it's just the reality of life at the moment. We can't deal with everything as quickly as we normally would, because normally, you know, we pride ourselves in the way we get on and get stuff sorted out quickly. But when the pile is so big, we just have to apply some prioritisation to it. Kia ora.
So my further supplementary question that goes to that, and again it goes to the direct engagement I'm having with communities, and I've spoken with officers, they're interested in a toolbox so that they can understand the catchment, so that they can arrive at conceivably localised surface water management plans. They can source some funds for that, especially when it's on private property. But they really need some tools, and if you go to the website at this point and you look for information on these tools, they're really not there. They're rather vague. Okay.
Yeah, so that's part of our community resilience program, and I'll just reiterate, we're going as fast as we can, but we've got so many different challenges that we're trying to deal with at the moment. We do have to prioritise. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Ferry.
Thank you, and I just want to acknowledge the two members we have from the advisory panel who've presented. That was really useful and valuable, and I really like the way you managed to get it down into one slide by breaking all those good slide rules, but you did the job, so well done, Dylan and Teresa. Wanted to acknowledge that. My question, and it actually builds a little bit on Councillor Walker's question, is around this document here, the one that we put out for the Storm Recovery and Resilience consultation. I found this document excellent, really useful for explaining a lot of the concepts of what was going on behind the scenes to people, as well as being a good basis for consultation. And I guess my question is, I feel like we don't usually produce consultation that's this clear and this useful. So what have we learned from this process? Has this worked out well with the community? I mean, it works for me, but it might not more broadly. And how are we going to build on this for future consultation on this topic, but also on others? Thanks.
I think that question is best referred on to our consultation engagement team within council, because behind the scenes there's been this fantastic team that helped us put that quality material together. I don't claim to be an expert in this space, so they were the ones that really took the leadership in this space. So I think if we referred your question through to them, Councillor Ferry, they could provide us with some good feedback.
That's great, thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Henderson, please.
Kia ora, thank you. Better stormwater maintenance is going to be hard to implement in practice, right? Bloody hard, because it's very expensive. Have there been any ideas on how to control costs so that we can do more?
Look, I'd have to say that I think the way that our stormwater maintenance activities are carried out at the moment, I think we are doing them in a pretty cost-effective fashion. But the reality is, as you say, in order to achieve better outcomes, unfortunately, the one thing that we need more of is dollars. Yeah. And that's the harsh reality. I don't think we can be, happy to be challenged around our efficiency, but I think we do pretty well at the moment. But we literally need more resources if we're going to do more work, and that comes at a cost. Kia ora.
Good question. I notice a 34% better stormwater maintenance figure there. A bit of education is part of this as well. I know that Carry, the people have all blamed it on stormwater maintenance, but the road was below the slips. The slips happened way up the top, and it was largely due to the geology plus the on-site effluent disposal. So nobody wants to accept any personal responsibility. They want to blame the maintenance. And the other thing is, that if you've got a drain that's your storm and that serves solely your driveway, you're actually allowed to clean it out yourself. Next question, Councillor Hill.
Thank you, and thank you to all the work that's been done, but also councillors and local board members who've been giving us a lot of feedback on their areas through this. I guess one question for me, and it's between Recovery Office, planning, Healthy Waters, everyone. How do we tie, at what point do we help tie all this together? Because I know through PEP we're doing a bunch of stuff on hazards that may affect what you're doing. There'll be the changes with making space for water, there'll be recovery stuff. How do we, I think people are getting kind of confused at how it all fits together, and that'll be people on the periphery, people not directly affected, because I know we are directly connected to a lot of affected people, but broader than that, how are we going to get all those pieces together?
Kia ora, thanks, Councillor. Yes, look, we're certainly seeing that the scale and the complexity of this is hard for people to understand. And what we're working on at the moment, the Tamaki Makaurau Recovery Plan, I think we're seeing that as the opportunity to make all of those connections. So it won't be the Recovery Office work program necessarily, it will be the thing that brings together all of the efforts that are being undertaken that support recovery for the future. So you can expect when we report back to you next that you will start to see those strands coming together.
Good answer. Councillor Sayers.
Yeah, thank you. My question is around capacity. I heard you, you mentioning how you're working as hard as you can and you need to prioritise, and also your comment about if you had more money, you could get more done. So just for, I don't want to make any assumptions, but if you had it, is there capacity in the marketplace for your contractors to deliver further? In other words, are there any risks around capacity that we need to be made aware of or not?
Look, I think if we had more money, we would obviously need to accept the fact that the contractors would need to gear up. But if they know that we enter it, typically our maintenance contracts are 4+4. So if they know they've got the surety of work over a longer period of time, they can invest in the equipment and the staff resources to deliver on those outcomes. So I think it is around the way that we end up structuring our contracts to give them that market surety. I think there is the willingness and the ability to deliver more, but I can tell you right now, and it's come up before, we've run out of water engineers. We literally don't have any more, and that does create some constraints because a lot of my staff at the moment are involved in doing the assessments on the individual properties, and that's a very demanding job and takes a lot of our resource out of normal BAU. So we're stretched pretty thin at the moment, but unfortunately there aren't the people. Very difficult recruiting staff into this area at the moment. They just don't exist. And it's a much longer, the country's got a much bigger challenge around just how it grows its professional services in these areas, and we need to get right back into the primary schools and the intermediate schools to start to get kids excited about these opportunities. That's where it starts. Kia ora.
Good response, thank you. Councillor Filipino.
Thank you, Chair. Like everybody else here, Craig, thank you, and in particular pass it on to Doug Pittini, please, in regards to all the work that he's doing. My question is, have there been any consultation with other TLAs, district councils, in regards to the situation? For example, Gizzy, for example, Hawke's Bay, and others, in regards to where we're at. I think, we can learn of each other, so that's the pātai, and tēnā korua.
Kia ora, Councillor. Yes, I can confirm that there's lots of conversations happening with other impacted TLAs.
Okay, thanks. Well, it's been moved and seconded. It has been moved and seconded? Oh, move. There we are. Julie and Wayne, thank you. The picture up there at the moment, for those of you who care to look up there on the right, is the Wayne Brown who got the phone calls during the middle of the storm. I'm going to move that. Oh, any further comments? No, we've had a lot of comments. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary. Thank you very much for an entertaining and informative presentation. And I welcome